All right, I'm back on the street. As promised, I'm on Fifth Avenue and 49th. I think there's 30 Rock is right there. Let's see if I can step back and get a photo here. Actually, a couple more blocks down. Excuse me. Yeah, I've said before that I won't ever walk up Fifth Avenue, and guess what? I'm walking up Fifth Avenue during the holidays. Yeah, it looks like they've got the
It's moving.
windows all dressed up for the holidays. Yeah, each time I walk up this way, I think I'll get a bunch of photos, and then I realize halfway through, I just want to get out of here. There's the St. Paul's Cathedral, which if it's anything like St. John the Divine, they're charging people to get in. Yeah, continues to be a bad idea.
It's to our left. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Oh, fine.
It's good though. It's always good to see people spending money in your city, right? I saw the Adidas store, and they've got the Luis Diaz and Lionel Messi national jerseys up front. I think the draw is going on right now.
Walk by the rock colored tree because it's all.
Okay, now we're up to MoMA, which is what, 53rd, 54th?
Oh yeah, of course.
And then they bring it in like, very little to bring out.
Right. Just need to get 6 more blocks, then I'll be up by the park. And I can zoom home after that. It's the St. Thomas Church. It's not a very good photo because there's like no real context around it. Yeah, I think we'll try to come down here in the morning, even tomorrow morning. Still darker out, not as many people.
Is it bangs or something?
And you can see the lights on the windows.
Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, I see 59. We're getting closer.
That's why I didn't really want us to do. Hold up. Ah.
This must be the most expensive block with Apple on one side and Tiffany on the other. All right, I'm on Fifth Avenue. So you might notice that in the mornings I walk near the park and in the park, and I'm doing the exact same thing today, except for I'm normally on the west side, and now I'm on the east side.
Metro, you have to go all the way.
I'm at the southeastern part of the park, so I just walked past the plaza and Tiffany and the Apple Store right there on Fifth Avenue. So I'll walk out Fifth Avenue a little bit longer. And I'll cut inside. I'll grab some photos of a very winter-looking Central Park. I have to think of every New Yorker walking around in the November and December holiday season. You know, if you are walking around, especially in the middle of not just holiday season, but holiday streets, good for you. I hope your patience runs as long as the holiday season. As long as they're spending money, right? Speaking of spending money, I'm fascinated, continue to be fascinated with the leeway that Mark Zuckerberg and Meta get from investors, from stakeholders, shareholders. It's mind boggling. I was reading this morning that they've spent $80 billion on the metaverse since, was that 2021? I mean, part of that is even, I would imagine, I'm sure it's spread over 7 years, but I would have to imagine that the rebrand from Facebook to Meta is part of that $80 billion. That's just a freaking crazy number. And then to read that they're going to lay off up to 30% of that staff, those resources. I mean, I think the article I was reading was listing off all the go-to-market pushes that Facebook has done and have completely failed. It reads like the roster of a Cleveland Browns quarterback history. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, part of that is that they've picked off or maybe unknowingly picked up one of the head designers from Apple and his team to come over to Meta, and how much that's going to cost them, in addition to all the quote unquote super intelligence teams they brought on this year for millions of dollars. I mean, at some point, somebody's got to say something. I think in general, right, if you were to think 4 years back and known that you were going to spend $80 billion or realistically any amount, and that direction is from the CEO and founder, you push pretty hard in that direction, which is, I'm sure, what they did. But less than 5 years later, they're completely changing their business model. And I read the money they're spending now from an investment standpoint. You could see my fingers, they're in bunny ears. They're investing in all the super intelligent stuff, which includes Meta Labs, I think it's called. On Fifth Avenue, walking up here, I saw they have a storefront for Meta Labs on Fifth Avenue. They have a storefront. I'm sure it's a change in the couch, but how much is that costing them? To what extent? But they went through this whole thing of creating the metaverse and really pitching to investors that this is what they're spending their money on. Another response to that is, just kidding. We're going to lay off 30% of those resources and put that money into another venture that realistically they're not going to do anything with, but go sideways until they buy a company like WhatsApp or Instagram or any one of those, instead of developing something internally. The report was saying, I think it was a Bloomberg report. I'll see if I can find it and add a link to it in the description. I think the interesting thing from the report is that, well, wait a minute, OpenAI is spending all this money on, call it what you want, AI infrastructure. Then you've got NVIDIA spending all this money on AI infrastructure, different kinds of infrastructure, hardware versus software. I think the difference there is that they have offsetting revenue channels, right? Even look at Google, and they're pouring all that money to Gemini. They have a cloud business. I gotta say, there's a special talent for people in the middle of an 8 million person populated city who can just make it their own. No realization that there's other people around them. Stop and look at their phone in the middle of a crowded walkway. Have 14 dogs going across the entire pathway so no one can go across. Must be just an amazing life to lead. Wait, it's the holidays. We're all excited that you're here. I took this different route because I was going to try to cut in. I normally cut in like around 68th or 70th, and they just cut straight across. So I wanted to go up. What's that? Literary walk? There's something in the park that's got a bunch of artists and a couple of other things. I wanted to walk up that way instead of having to cross it. I think this is the right way. Although I might be just getting lost at this point. Oh, I could look at a street lamp. Yeah, so, we think about these leaders or these decisions in vacuums, right? You make the best decision at the point in time with the best information you have. And over time, you refine that decision to move forward. But at what point did we think the metaverse was going to be, a thing to start with, but also like a consumer revenue generating thing? I know a lot's happened between now and 2021. There was that big global virus that threw, wrenches in a lot of things. But even if you think about, okay, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, which I don't know what that benefit is. They sell ads, right? Isn't that what he said in front of Congress? That's how they make money, is they sell ads. Maybe they should just stick to that. They're not really good at anything else. So to think that there's these Geminis of the world, whatever Apple comes up with, right? Certainly OpenAI, they all have revenue generating activities off of their AI costs or investments. What is Facebook doing, or Meta doing? What is he doing? At some point, I think that he's got to, step aside from a day-to-day CEO responsibility, maybe move up to the executive chairman only. Still as a founder-led company, that's going to be tough for anyone to come into. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to take a picture. I missed the turnoff. So I did end up coming in where I normally come in anyway. So I'm going to walk up here, take a photo backwards so you can see what it looks like in the winter. There's some pretty cool things over here. I was watching the John O'Verity, one of his videos, and he was talking about this obelisk that was in London and how, they somehow got it all the way over to London from Egypt. Well, there's one here too. I think I mentioned the obelisk in Central Park at another point.
Oh my God, bro, there's a whole ass thing over here.
Another episode.
Bro, there's a whole ass.
That photo in the summer is lined with like sellers, art, music, food. It's really quite neat. And then where I normally walk in the mornings, I'm coming up to the lake. This is the Bethesda fountain right next to me. On the other side of that is the lake. And I normally just walk on the other side of that. So walking across the park isn't too bad. I definitely like the west side better than the east side of the park, though. I think there's like a crowd of tourists here.
So these guys, you guys turn around and fix us. You turn around. Now you guys listen up. Everyone gave money except you guys. Now he's gonna flip over. This is for your safety. How much do you love your life? Now 20 can save you. 50 to 100, you can leave and never come back. I don't know who's important. We're gonna start with the rich white guy. Step up, sir.
Okay, I'll skip the Bethesda fountain. I'll get that another time.
Make some noise for LA. Make some noise.
There's just so many carriages. It is definitely tourist season. Here's a shot of a bunch of bicycle carriages. Yeah, unfortunately they have horse carriages too, which the former mayor once said that he was going to ban them, but I guess he just never did. We've definitely had some interesting mayors lately. And I suppose coming up too. Okay, I'm going to see if I can grab a photo of the Dakota building here. Not the Dakota building, but the San Remo. You could tell because of the two towers. You have to look through the branches on the trees. There's not much left. How many leaves left? I think when I left this morning, the feels like was 13 degrees. I think it's doubled. So it's a little bit more pleasant to walk around here. I will go right by, right through the Strawberry Field with the Imagine Monument. I'll grab a photo of that if there's, imagine there's a ton of people around there this time of the day, this time of the year. So yeah, so I mean, the decisions we make, right? I mean, if you're a leader and looking to make operational decisions for the next year, 3 years out, I'm pretty sure you have a plan. I'm pretty sure that you have executive sponsors, and I'm definitely sure that you've got a budget and forecast that's attached to that. If that's a 3-year plan with a certain margin attached to it, that by the end of the 3 years that you need to start making revenue so you can start offsetting the costs, then that's your plan, that's your goal, that's your focus. $80 billion. I think I remember when Amazon was going public, went public, and they never made a lot of money. They never returned a lot of money back to their shareholders in the sense of like dividends. And I remember Jeff Bezos saying, well, don't worry, because we're investing that all back into the business. And now you can see it, right? I mean, hindsight, but you can see it that he had a long-term plan and he had a focus on what he was building. And boy, did he. But it's probably important to think about decisions in that framework of not only what does this look like when we drive it to success, what does it look like? What does this project look like when we drive it to failure? At what point do we have to make that difficult decision of saying, we got to cut loose here? And there is no path to success, which is probably one of the toughest decisions you're going to have to make at any level. Okay, that's the Imagine Memorial. This is the spot, the Strawberry Field area that's right across the street from the Dakota building. So it's nice that I can see the Dakota building, which means that we're on the west side. Here, I'll get this typical picture of birds on a lamppost. Yeah, and I think it's important to discuss that. Discuss that with your team, be open and honest about it, that, hey, here's our goals. If we don't make revenue, if we don't have a path to revenue, then we got to bail. We've got to turn the project down. And that doesn't mean that everybody gets fired, but it does mean that at some point, we're going to make a decision and maybe we pare back the team a little bit if it's not at the success where we want it to be, so we can save some money. You know, maybe there's some good opportunities and leads that are coming through. So the best bet for you to do is to get, you know, the cost down as quickly as possible, knowing that there's some cost already built into the project, at least that when that revenue or when those promising leads come through, that when you do turn that revenue, that payback period becomes a lot shorter. Of course, depending on the success of the product, you'll need to hire some of those people back on. That should be due to, right, increasing demand on product, service, support, whatever it might be. But ultimately, it's because you're making more revenue. And hopefully you're making it at the right margin that you can bring on more people to scale or to do more things better. I have to maybe say a little bit of bias and transparency. I have never been a Facebook user. I'm pretty sure I had an account early on and I saw zero value in it. Definitely saw the dangers in it. And I got out. I did have a Threads account, and which I thought was actually pretty good for a while, and an Instagram account, which I liked too for a while. And probably what I find most interesting about those kinds of products is that they were good before Facebook got involved, from an acquisition standpoint. And they were good all the way up until Facebook decided to, get more involved on the product side, which just really can't come as a surprise to anyone, given their leadership.